months ago. Since then, the numbers have even gotten stronger. But Patrick Dew joins us today to break this down as a statistician and sociologist. Amazing findings. We're going to put some of these on screen, but break down what the original study did and then what you gleaned from the numbers they had.
Well, Tricia Sarter wrote a report for the Pew Research Institute on excellence in journalism, outlining the number of news articles that the candidates received, and some people weren't candidates at all, but for sake of time, Mitt Romney received 120 articles where he was the lead newsmaker of that article. In comparison, Ron Paul received 27. To keep this number in order, the same newspapers produced stories about Barack Obama. President Obama, he received over 220 articles about over the same information. So what I did was I took this information, I used it as an independent variable to see if this would determine how straw poll results would turn out or how candidates received coverage during debates. So I took 5 debates in September and October and broke them down, how many times each candidate was allowed to speak, and the total time each candidate took to speak. And then I also looked at straw poll results from until October 29th. Since then, there's been 9 more straw polls that have been held since October 29th. What's fascinating is that there's an inverse relationship between the number of news articles written about the candidates and the number of straw poll victories. As of October 29th, Ron Paul had won 11 straw polls, and Mitt Romney had won 4. Newt Gingrich hadn't won 1, and Herman Cain had won 12. Since that time, there's been 9 more straw polls. Ron Paul's won 6 of them, Herman Cain won 2, and Newt Gingrich won 1, making him now the new front-runner.
So Ron Paul is the undisputed leader?
The undisputed leader. He's got 17 victories out of the 44. That's 38% of the victories of the straw polls, and yet he's getting no coverage until recently.
Now you're the analyst and the sociologist and the statistician, but correct me if I'm wrong, what this is showing is there's 2 different worlds. There's the mainstream media saying who they think the winner is, and the crowd that follows what the mainstream media says. And then there's the other crowd that's becoming larger every day that doesn't go off what the so-called dinosaur media says, who is supporting Ron Paul. And I saw this in Kentucky when the media was attacking Rand Paul. The more they attacked him and claimed he was worshiping Buddhas and kidnapping women and wasn't a medical doctor, all of which was lies, his numbers only went up. And that's what I told Politico last year. I said, if you want to destroy Rand Paul, endorse him. I mean, the system just doesn't get, it's discredited. Now, that's what I see as somebody who hasn't scientifically broken down the numbers. What do you get from this?
This seems like they have had someone that they want to be the leader from. I mean, Mitt Romney, according to Gallup polls, has been the leader since November 2010. So even though he's not, this isn't shown. I mean, straw polls aren't scientific, but they're supposed to be, they're given an idea of what people are thinking, how they would vote. Again, people could change their votes, but I don't see why people who would go to these straw polls, usually they're donating money, would put a false vote down. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous that, I mean, I think it all starts from his 1988 campaign when he ran for president, and then it started this grassroots movement that got him support in 2008, which has just exploded now in 2011 and going into the 2012.
So it's worlds colliding. It's real grassroots populism, left, right, across the board, versus the establishment serving up the Obama and Newt Gingrich type candidates.
Absolutely, because he's never had this amount of support. Ron Paul has never had this amount of support before, this amount of coverage. I mean, in 2008, it was 2007 even when the Tea Party first originated, you know, being built back up again, and it was all supported Ron Paul, and then it was absorbed by Fox News, and they're going to try to take his ideas, is what I'm guessing. I mean, that's what Rick Perry's done. He's tried to take Ron Paul's ideas and use them as his own and try to finagle his way into the race. But, I mean, he's not...
Well, people discovered he was a fraud.
Right.
I mean, you know, the fact is Ron Paul is who he says he is, and people trying to become Ron Paul are failing. And it's like shark teeth. You get one candidate, people find out about him, they fall back. Another comes forward, and they've said it's whoever comes up last when the primary hits, like a Newt Gingrich, who isn't found out before the primaries that they believe will get it. And that's why they're in a race to beat Paul. But now even CBS has to admit he is in second place now behind Newt Gingrich, but they've now made him the heir apparent. But just amazing that he's now won 6 more straw polls, so he's the undisputed winner of those, and is now coming up to 3rd and 2nd place in all the other scientific polls. So if he gave this interview a headline from the Pew Research. I guess it's just scientific study shows media endorsement, is not helping candidates win, or I mean, what's the bottom line statement you got from this?
Well, I mean, the media, they have something to sell. They're selling to an audience, and they're telling people what they want them to do, how they want them to vote. But people who are paying attention aren't buying into it. So if we can keep that momentum going, I mean, he's winning 38% of the straw polls. I mean, there's a reason for that. It's not just a fluke, but they can disregard it as much as they want.
Yeah, out of 8 candidates, he's winning the most. But so what you're really saying from this breakdown is that the public is not buying the media darling candidates anymore, that the media is losing its endorsement power.
They are. I mean, you still have special interest groups, and you have the religious group, not fundamentalist, but you have religious organizations that will vote a certain way, and they have their pastors tell people how to vote. But it's spreading. It's spreading slowly, and it takes time. But I mean, it's happening. I mean, and it's got to be some kind of, it's an anomaly, because there's no reason why someone who receives that much media support should be winning this number of polls.
He's getting the least amount of coverage, and he's winning the most. And I think what that really shows then, and shows a lot of things, is that the mainstream media is not as powerful as it was. TV viewership's down, newspaper reading is down. More people get their news from the web and the alternative media. And we've crossed the Rubicon the last 2 years. A lot of studies show this, that alternative media is now the dominant media. It's just truly diverse and a million different voices, whereas you've got the old media, 100 different voices, but they are now the smaller part of the market share. So they can still steer things for a little while. They can con people in the short term, but their staying power isn't there. They're out of bullets. It's over. The dinosaurs are dying.
I agree. I mean, Ron Paul has an opportunity now. I mean, if the Iowa caucus can say anything, if it has a lot of support, then I mean, maybe we are making a change. Where maybe there can be hope and change in the world again. But if we can turn that corner and he can win the Republican vote. His problem is that he's not a conventional Republican candidate, because he's got too many socially liberal views. I mean, he's not trying to get involved too much. And he wants to take our military out of foreign land. So he doesn't. He's
a constitutionalist.
He doesn't go along with
which means he's a classical liberal like Thomas Jefferson.
Right, and so the people that say that they're liberals now are more conservative, because they're not going for change. They're trying to keep everything the same, keep it status quo, keep their pockets full. And he's the only person who's talking about realities. He's not going for applause points. He's not going for.
Yeah, I know the behind-the-scenes baseball. He doesn't even want power to be the president. He knows it's a responsibility. The exciting thing about this, though, is, as you pointed out, he got a fraction of the media coverage 4 years ago that he's getting now. And it shows the grassroots is what's put him here. Now he's getting a little more media attention, but still, compared to the others, it's the lowest level. It really shows that the grassroots has grown, and even if he doesn't win, the ideas that he's been a focal point of are growing exponentially.
I think that's his goal, too. I don't think he cares to win. I think he's trying to wake people up, and now it's working, because 10 years ago I was in a band, and now I'm writing papers like this, and I guess being an activist and try to get people to pay attention.
Well, that's what the Bilderberg Group said 2 years ago. We have inside sources there through Jim Tucker. They said they're very upset. I mean, at the actual 130 most powerful people in the world, they're talking about Ron Paul. And they said it's not that they know they can probably keep him out with election fraud. It's that on the colleges, it's not communism that the kids think or young people think is cool. It's not right-wing fascist type fake stuff. It's true libertarian ideas. They know their gauges show that's the hottest thing, and they see that growth rate, and they're panicking. I want to give you 4 or 5 minutes, Patrick, without my interjections, to go over your report. I want to give you the floor to really take your time and break down the different facets of this. I want to get your report that's boiled down out of the Pew Research, and have an article written tomorrow for INFOWARS.com and PRISONPLANET.com, because this is certainly newsworthy. But just looking into the camera over there, let's say look into this one. Take 4 or 5 minutes and address people about your findings. Give the public out there a report.
The reason why I did this report was because I was tired of arguing and campaigning for Ron Paul and telling people that the media was ignoring him, and them not believing me because they use the excuse that the media they weed through the people running for office, candidates, in order to find the best possible one, and they'll focus on that one. But they're not doing their job now, and so I wanted to point out why and do it scientifically rather than taking a partisan stance and saying, well, I am a supporter of Ron Paul and here's why I like him. He's got three problems. He's seen as a third-party candidate, as a libertarian, so he's not a conventional Republican candidate, and he's not a conventional Democratic candidate either, big D. His stance on foreign policy is different than any other Republican candidate. He wants to bring our military home instead of falling in line with the same American exceptionalism, and the rest of the world should get in line and follow suit. And his stance on social issues are another reason why he's so different. He's pro-gay rights. He's not a supporter of abortion, but he's not the type of individual who wants to tell people how they should live their lives. So I respect him in that sense, is that he's not trying to dictate people's lives. So he's an important individual. And when I came across the Pew Research report by Tricia Sarter, I thought it was amazing that he was getting so little coverage, because at that time, when I first found it, he had still won 7 straw polls, so he had still had some success. So I took 5 debates from September and October, and I broke those down, and I looked at the number of times each candidate spoke and the number of and the minutes that each candidate spoke. Individuals like Mitt Romney and Rick Perry received over an hour of talking time for those 5 debates. Ron Paul received 37 minutes. He was allowed to talk, 36 minutes. He was allowed to talk 37 times. The other candidates spoke over 60 times. The next closest one was Herman Cain, who spoke 44. He's not receiving the fair amount that I would think an individual like him, because he's a straight up individual. He's not using tactics to break down his candidates. He's being the type of person I think we should all emulate and try to be like. And so looking at the straw poll results, all of them have been referenced, and so through 35 of them, Mitt Romney has won 4, Rick Perry won 1, Michelle Bachmann 1, Rick Santorum 2, Ron Paul 11, Herman Cain 12. Now Herman Cain's not in the race anymore, so and since 9 more straw polls have happened, and like I said, Ron Paul's won 6, Herman Cain won 2, but he dropped out right after the second one, and Newt Gingrich has won 1. So we have an individual who's won 17 straw polls from over the last 11 plus months that is not receiving any media attention. So, but I didn't want to say it was a sociological phenomenon known as the hostile media effect, because that's all about perception, and that's where you get tied up, is where you start saying there's media bias out there, then you have to prove that there's a bias. And the problem with bias is that it's all about perception. It's an individual who's a Fox News watcher will say that MSNBC has a liberal bias because they don't have the same viewpoint as someone who's reporting Fox's stance or ideology.
This is cold, hard facts.
Yes. And
this isn't about bias. It clearly shows a bias. It shows they're scared of Ron Paul. And since you did this report a few months ago, now they're cutting him even more. Forget he gets 2 or 3 minutes and Rick Perry gets